Let's talk about Dick Cheney's biography. I was fascinated to read that he was unconscious for weeks. In 2010, he said he had a vivid dream. He was living in an Italian villa, pacing the stone paths to get coffee and newspapers. What a great dream while you're unconscious. But on the serious side, he certainly wrote about his differences with Colin Powell, Ron Elving.
That's right. He had a great number of differences with both Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice. Apparently, when we see the personal library of Dick Cheney, we won't be finding a book with lots of photographs of Condoleezza Rice, as they found in Libya. There was not much love lost in these relationships because Dick Cheney involved himself in foreign policy in a way it's hard to imagine any previous vice president having done. He was very much a driver of an aggressive foreign policy. We learn in his book, among other things, that he recommended the bombing of a weapons site in Syria as late as 2007, well after the Iraq invasion, well after all of the things for which he will be remembered and will be famous. So the book is entitled In My Time, I believe, and it might have been subtitled And I'm Still Right, because the book does appear to be completely unrepentant about all the things that made him a rather unpopular vice president, to some degree within the administration and certainly in the general public.
And it's probably worth noting that Condoleezza Rice's own memoir is due out in November, and so he was very harsh about her. He described her as naive on North Korea. We may have another version of events coming very soon.
One interesting part of this book that dovetails on a point that Ron made earlier about the lack of evacuation policies here in Washington, D.C., Dick Cheney wrote a note that he kept in his safe that could have been used had he been incapacitated that would have allowed him to resign, essentially. Only one of his aides knew that. This brings up the point that there's not really a way to remove an incapacitated vice president. There's not really a way to evacuate Washington, D.C. in times of crisis. There's not really a way to replace a majority of the U.S. House of Representatives if some disaster strikes. There are members of Congress who try to pass new continuity plans, but that hasn't really gone anywhere. So at the end of the day, we've still got a few parts of this whole disaster plan to get right.